Well, most business owners are obsessing over features and benefits. 91% of consumers are actually making decisions based on something completely different: purpose. So, what if everything you thought about growing your business was taught backwards? Well, welcome back to the Mind of George Show. This is the show for entrepreneurs like you who know that scaling their business isn't just about strategies and tactics. It's about breaking free from the outdated business models, the slimy sales tactics, and the mindset limitations that hold us back. All so that you can grow and scale with ease and impact by mastering that mindset, building world-class customer journeys, and most importantly, being in alignment with yourself at the deepest level and having messaging that doesn't make you feel icky, that makes you love how you say it and also resonates with your audience. And today we are diving into part 4 of the series on the purpose story, which is the narrative that transforms your mission into a movement, and learn how to turn your deeper why into a force that builds the best audience, the best people, and unshakable loyalty. So this is part 4 of the 5-part series on stories that stick, an incredible book by Kindra Hall. And here's what we have to know. Most entrepreneurs are stuck in the hamster wheel of tactics and funnels, but what are the real game changers? They're building movements that matter, and movements are built by telling stories. And today we're diving deep into the purpose story. It's the one that transforms good businesses into unforgettable brands. And so we get into why your deeper why is your secret weapon, how to tell your purpose story without sounding preachy, how to turn your mission into a movement that sticks, how to get your team and your customers fired up about your vision, and making your purpose a part of everything that you do. And I would submit that most people and most customers and potential customers are done with empty promises and all the quote unquote corporate speak. People are searching for brands that stand for something real, something meaningful. And if you're ready to build your business that's driven by purpose instead of profit, then this episode, this purpose story, will show you exactly how to turn your mission into a movement with story. So without further ado, let's get into the show. In a world full of offers, automation, and quote unquote optimized everything, people are raising their hands, they're screaming from the rooftops, and they're starving for meaning, for alignment, for leadership that they can believe in. So welcome back to part 4 of the 5-part series on stories that stick by Kindra Hall. And I'm really, really excited about today's. I love all the stories. We had the value story, we had the authority story, and now we get into the founder story. And this one is probably one of my favorite ones because it ties into so much marketing and messaging and what we like to call movements, which are required to build a sustainable business. And so if you haven't listened to the whole 4 parts, this would be part 4, the first 3. I would invite you to go listen after this, but part 1 breaks down the 4 types of stories: the value story, the founder story, the purpose story, and the customer story. And the customer story is coming in the next episode. And it explains what stories are, why they matter, what makes them stick, and a really easy way to start incorporating these stories into your business, into your marketing, into your messaging. And today's story in part 4 is the founder story. And so if you want to be able to scale sustainably, if you want to be able to have integrity in what you do, have a deeper meaning and a deeper connection, whether it's scaling yourself, scaling your team, scaling your clients, your community, all of them need to share one important thing in common. And they need to feel like they're part of something bigger than a transaction. And today's episode is all about the purpose story. The purpose story is the one that takes this word that we all hear, alignment, but what it really does is it brings your heart, your why, the reason you do this, to the most important people in your world, which is your team and then your customers. It inspires loyalty because it gives people a reason to be in a relationship with you, and it builds movements instead of just businesses. And so I say this with you, and I joke when I keynote, and I say this all the time. Nike's billboard doesn't say just do it only if you wear our running shoes, right? Nike's movement is just do it. It's a belief system. It's a shared identity. And one of the things that I do with my private clients, and we just finished doing one of these this weekend, is the first thing we identify is what's the movement? What's the belief system? And for you or me, I'm pretty clear about what my movement is. Like, I believe that relationships beat algorithms. I believe that we should put the heart back into marketing. I believe that every person should feel seen, heard, and respected. I believe that we should treat our customers like they were our family members going through our funnels. That's my movement. That's my belief system. And that is so attached to my founder's story, especially as the guy who grew up in internet marketing in 2010, 2011, and fell into the transaction trap and fell into the funnel trap and fell into all these places until one day it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I share that today in the example of a founder's story. And it shifted me. It made me realize that, like, my son wasn't going to be proud of me when he was 18 with how I did business, or that I shouldn't be trying to, quote unquote, overcome objections, right? I was at a conference in San Diego and I was around a fireside conversation a couple of years ago. And it made me so blessed and grateful that I see it the way that I see it now, because there was a debate happening on what do you do if somebody's about to buy your offer and they say, oh, I want to go talk to your partner. And you're like, well, you basically gaslight her and you tell her that her partner doesn't matter and that she shouldn't communicate it and she should pay right now. And I was visibly nauseous. And I started yelling. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, can you imagine if that was your partner? And then it made me realize that even that one moment is another founder story. It could be a micro founder story of a macro one. And so today I'm going to be breaking down the founder story, or the purpose story. I'm sorry. That's a moment of a purpose story. So today I'm going to be breaking down a purpose story. Forgive me. I cut caffeine out like 2 months ago, and now I'm only decaf. And so it takes a little while for my brain to turn on. Purpose story. Okay. So first, let's talk about what is a purpose story. So I'm going to be explaining in today what a purpose story is, why a purpose story works, the story arc. Okay. Then how to craft your purpose story, some prompts that you can pull from, some tips that you can think in mind, and then where to use your purpose story. So first, let's start with what is a purpose story. A purpose story is the deeper why behind what you do. And it's told through what we would call a moment of meaning. It's told through a moment of meaning, an emotional moment, a clarity moment, a catalytic moment. The example I shared a few minutes ago is I could go tell a story, a purpose story about that fireplace conversation that made me change how I do and how I teach sales. Right? It's a moment of meaning that meant something to me. Just like I can tell you a purpose story about how I changed how I did business after becoming a father. Because one of my business partners said to me, we were having a conversation around a fire. Apparently, I have a lot of fireside chats in my life. And we were talking about how the one justification I always used in my head is I'm working so hard for my family. I'm working so late because of my family. And he's like, yeah. But if we asked our family where they wanted us, they wouldn't want us working. They'd want us home. And it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. And it was this moment of meaning. Okay. It is not a mission statement. It is a story that makes people important feel your mission in their bones, in their heart, in their body. This isn't about logic, which we covered in episode 1 of this, right? It's about emotion and it's about feeling. And when we elicit those feelings, it creates internal and external alignment. It lets people know, regardless of business, that they think and feel the same way you do, that they see the world the same way you do. And so it creates alignment. And when we say internal alignment, what we're talking about is for you, for your team, and then when you and your team are together, for your audience. Right? When I'm helping clients hire and fire, I say, we hire on values and then we train skills. We hire on beliefs and then we train skills. And what that's doing is creating a cohesive unit of people that operate with this same movement or same belief, which all comes from this purpose story. And so as much as we think that people just want quick solutions, or they just want a little transaction, or they just want this product, truthfully, we like to belong to things. We want to stand for something. We want to know that our energy, our time, our money is going to something different, that it's making a big impact. And when I think about my closest friends who do business incredibly well, they all have massive movements and belief systems tied to them, and they all have incredible purpose stories. Okay. So a purpose story, or a powerful one, is one that makes your brand a mirror for somebody else's values. And there are plenty of people that don't like me in the business world because of how I talk about marketing sometimes, or how I talk about business. But on the same vein, there are a ton of people that resonate deeply with me, and they agree and they see the world the same way that I do. And I'm not here to be everybody, right? I'm not here to have everybody like me. I love everybody. I'll give them the shirt off my back. I'll change their tire if they're in Montana. I'll have dinner with them. But I still have my beliefs and values when it comes to what I believe and what I know in my heart to be true on how I want to do business. And so a powerful purpose story makes your brand, your business, your content a mirror for their values. And when I say their values, your team and your customers, and most importantly, your potential customers. That's why it's so powerful and why it works so deeply. And just like we've been talking about in this whole series, there's still a story arc that's inside of it. Okay. So the purpose story has the same story arc. You have the normal, which is the before state. You were building or running things in a quote unquote successful way. Great. Then you have the explosion. Something shook you. It challenged your values. It opened your eyes. Great. Then you have the new normal. You committed to doing things differently on purpose. And so already in this episode, I shared a fire conversation a couple years ago. I shared a conversation with my business partner a couple years ago. I shared what happened in my clarity after my son was born, right? There was a way that I was doing business. Then there was this moment that happened, and then it changed my perspective and how I did business. And so now let's move into how to craft your purpose story. And I think I want to lead this one a little bit, that we all have this like origin story, right? Whatever that was. And I think I look at the big one of the purpose story of like the grand why, right? There's this giant one, which made me realize why I wanted to do business the way I do it, which is that macro story. But inside of that big macro story, we also have a ton of little micro stories. And my macro founder story was when I was a food blogger, a New York Times bestseller. I had a combined 1 million followers on social media, 5 million people a month on my website. And I stepped away for the business for the first time and went to Costa Rica and spent time in silence. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I didn't like cooking. I didn't want to be that person. I was miserable. I was depressed. I was anxious. I wasn't being myself and in alignment at the deepest level. And then that shifted me to give that company away. That's a crazy purpose story. And then that's what put me on the path of coaching and consulting. That's the big macro story. But then in that story, there's all these little micro stories of moments that kept pushing me closer towards my movement and towards my vision and towards my purpose. From those conversations to interactions with clients, to coaching for the first time, to speaking for the first time, to emceeing an event for the first time, to facilitating my own event. And each one of those had these micro purpose stories built inside of it. And as I've said through many of these episodes in this series, people relate to stories. People listen to stories. People remember and repeat stories. And it's our job to share those stories. And so we're going to talk about how to craft your purpose story. And I'm going to give you some prompts that I'm looking at in front of me so that you have these. And so start with this one simple question when it comes to crafting your purpose story. And I would say that you can do this one of two ways. You can do it in the big macro story, like what's the big one? But then also you have the micro stories that could potentially serve as a purpose story to support your cause. So the first question is, what moment made you realize I can't keep doing things this way? What moment made you realize I can't keep doing things this way? That's question one. And then I'm going to give you some other prompts just to elicit some emotion or some feelings or to get some free writing time in. And what I would recommend is I would actually recommend that you don't type these, that you actually get a pen, you get a piece of paper. I'm holding it up if you're watching, and you give yourself some space, not in your normal office, not where you normally sit, but like go somewhere different to turn on a different part of your brain and to get out of your ecosystem when you sit here, and just allow your pen to flow and like just write down ideas. Okay. So question number one is, what moment made you realize I can't keep doing things this way? And then here's some other prompts to add texture to the story. What broke your heart, right, in that moment? Or what broke your heart in business that made you change how you do it? Another one is what ticked you off? Like, what did you experience? What did you see? What were you a part of that ticked you off? Maybe you didn't like how you were sold to, and now you teach selling and you're like, this is why I do it differently. Or maybe you were marketed in a way that made you feel icky on the inside and you're like, I'm never going to do that again. So what ticked you off? The next one is what woke you up to the bigger mission behind your business? Like what was that moment? What was that thing where you realized that your business wasn't just about making a dollar or changing into a different lifestyle, but like you really cared or you really want to help people? Was it the moment that one of your clients sent you a message saying that they just achieved this thing that they never thought possible? Was it the moment that one of your clients found the love of their life because you coach them on relationships? Was it the moment that you sat there and closed your laptop for the day and for the first time felt inner peace or eyes closed peace? Whatever that moment was, what was it that made you wake up to the bigger mission behind your business? And then what did you decide in that moment? What did you decide in that moment? So here's the prompts again. What moment made you realize I can't keep doing things this way? What broke your heart? What ticked you off? What woke you up to the bigger mission behind your business? And what did you decide in that moment? And remember, there is no right or wrong here. I want you to have a pen and a paper so you don't sanitize this. I want you to just document the raw truth, because here's a few tips that I wrote down. Tip number 1, do not sanitize it. People relate to raw, not rehearsed. They want real, they want relatable. They want to know that we think and feel the same way, that we've experienced things the same way. And newsflash, you are allowed to have a story. You are allowed to have emotions. You are allowed to have feelings. I'd submit that they're the thing that's missing in business right now, is people feeling authentic to share their emotions and to share these feelings. So tip number 1 is don't sanitize it. People want real. They want raw. They want authentic. Okay. The next tip is show the tension between what you believed and what you were seeing. Paint the picture, create that tension, right? I look at this of like communicating most people's inner thoughts. I know that like when I was in the audience of the event of the story that I'm going to share in a minute, I wasn't the only one thinking it. I wasn't the only one feeling it. Like, are we really telling a kid to max out 2 credit cards to buy your offer right now? Like, it made my soul feel icky. So tip number 2 is to show the tension between what you believed and what you were seeing. And then tip number 3 is let your story speak to a shared belief that your audience already holds. Let your story speak to a shared belief that your audience already holds. And for me, a really easy example, and I say this publicly, I'm like, you're not one funnel away. That doesn't mean funnels don't work. But I genuinely don't agree with a lot of the moniker and the beliefs that people get put into, and they throw their life savings at something thinking that just a funnel is going to create an idea or create a successful business. And there's a lot more underneath it. Okay. And so let your story speak to a shared belief your audience already holds. So those are the prompts for pulling out your purpose story. Okay. And when we think about a purpose story in the lens of business or a lens of marketing, like I've said in every single part of this series, these 4 stories that I'm sharing, you can use them anywhere and everywhere. And I would submit that you're supposed to use them all the time, to be a broken record, to repeat yourself, to share them, to share different moments of them, different angles of them. But specifically with the purpose story, I think one of the most important places is internal to your team. Number 1, it's with you. Number 1, it's reminding yourself every day why you do this, right? It always starts with why. The second one is with your team, using it in onboarding, bringing it up in team meetings, talking about it at team offsites, bringing people together and aligning them around those values to stay connected to the purpose. Another one is your community. And this is anything in your community. Could be you're kicking off a new month and you want to remind people. It could be you're launching a course. It could be you're launching a community. You have a new product. You're evolving your brand. The thing about stories is that they die when we stop telling them. And I see people make this mistake all the time, and I make this mistake, is that I forget to tell the stories. I forget that people don't remember the stories. I forget that new people come in. And I've even told stories to some of my dear friends, and they're like, I forgot that happened to you. And I was like, holy moly. So our stories are only as powerful as our willingness to keep telling them. And then when you think about another place to use them, you have your sales, you have business partnerships, right? This story, or your purpose story, is the one that attracts people that are aligned with your mission, not just your method. So if you're doing joint ventures, if you're getting somebody to come on your podcast, you want a podcast host, you're going to go run an event with somebody, it's important to share your purpose story to make sure that you're aligned with the people that you're working with, and especially clients, like big clients, high ticket clients. They need to know not just the method, but they need to know your mission and the meaning behind it. And so those are a few places where you can use your purpose story. But I would submit, like I've said a few times, that you want to use these stories, all of them, repeatedly anywhere that it feels called to. And you want to constantly tell these stories and remind people of these stories, and truthfully remind yourself of these stories to keep yourself on mission, on brand, and building your movement. And so I wrote this one earlier and I kept it high level, just like the other examples. And my intention with each one of these that I'm reading to you is that you have a kickoff point to start collecting and writing your purpose story in relationship to this one. And like I said, this purpose story, you want to document the meat of it so you have the book, but then your job is to keep these stories alive and to share excerpts of them. You can share a shorter version on Instagram stories. You can put a medium version on a Facebook post. You can go do a YouTube video and just share the entire thing just to keep sharing it and sharing it. And so I'm going to read the story. I'm going to read the story that I wrote for you on a purpose story example. And part of this is true for me, but just in the lens of respect and integrity, I kept it pretty vague. Okay. So here's the story. I was at a conference once, a giant ballroom. There was polished speakers, perfectly timed keynotes, perfect intro songs, the kind of event where everything looked perfect. But something about it on the inside felt so off to me. One speaker came on stage and started teaching a method through increasing sales through urgency, using all the things that I can't stand: false deadlines, psychological pressure, and worst of all, scarcity tactics. And I was mortified because people were clapping. They were taking notes. They were nodding. And all I could think was, this is exactly what's broken in this industry. That moment was my explosion. Before that, I thought I was just here to help people market better, more ethically. Yes, but still marketing. But in that moment, I realized I don't want to just build businesses. I want to build businesses based on integrity, ones that don't manipulate, ones that don't extract, and ones that actually care. That was my new normal. From that day on, I made a decision. If I ever taught marketing again, it wouldn't be about clicks or funnels or numbers. It would be about relationships, about telling the truth, about treating people like people. And that's why everything I do now is rooted in alignment first, because I believe that when you're in alignment, you don't have to force anything. You lead, you invite, you serve, and people feel it. So that's an example of one of these purpose stories that I wrote out. And so the beginning was the new normal. Then where I said explosion was that moment at that conference and at that event that I remember vaguely. And then in that moment when I realized I wanted to only do business with integrity, that's the new normal. So that's the story arc inside of that story, so that you have it as an example to use when crafting and documenting your purpose story. And so my invitation for you, and I'm going to encourage this wholeheartedly, because one of the things that I love is hearing people's stories. And I love when people unapologetically tell their stories and they own them. And that's you. So I want you to take yourself to a place, to a date, outside of nature, go sit in your car at a park, go stare at a lake, go to a quiet writing nook, go to the library, I don't know, go anywhere. And I want you to take some time to document your purpose story. Ask yourself the prompts and the questions that I shared. What moment made you realize that this work is about more than money, that this is a mission for you? Because this story is the thing that creates emotion and creates connection. And for this purpose story, it's the one that creates a true community, not one built on tactics and methods. Those are great. They have a place. But when you have a belief system first and people can relate to the belief system, then they stick around, even if a method changes or a tactic changes, or that you change your business, because they have a relationship with the entire brand and the purpose of it, because they want to stand for something. People do not need more persuasion. They need to feel your purpose. They need to feel your purpose. And I've made this mistake many, many times where I forget to tell the stories, to remind people of the stories. And then I just end up teaching methods. And then it doesn't work well for either of us because there's no meaning behind it. But when people can feel your purpose, they won't follow you. They will be a part of your community and they will fight for what you stand for. They will stand next to you toe to toe and say, I believe in that too, and be a part of something deeper. And so I want you to take some time to write your purpose story, just like the other stories that I've shared in this series. And the last story that I'm going to share next week is the customer story. And that's going to be a bow of the 4 big stories that every single one of us, until the day we retire or close our business, should be using in business. But newsflash, even when you do that, we still communicate in stories all the time. So I would invite us to constantly practice, refine, and keep sharing these stories. And so I want you to do all of the stories, especially this purpose one, and give them time and then share them. Because a book that nobody reads doesn't do anybody good, and a story that you don't share doesn't do anybody good. And so I want you to post it. And if you post it, tag me. I will watch it. I will share it. I want to see it. But when you share your story, you breathe life into that mission. You bring life into that purpose, and you give everybody else the opportunity to come be a part of it. And the people that align with you, the people that believe the same things you believe, the people that resonate with the things that you are sharing are the ones that are going to come find you. And so that's where I'm going to wrap today's on the purpose story. And so just as a recap, what we've covered is we did an overview in part 1 of all these types of stories. In part 2, we did the founder story, which is your story to humanize your brand. In part 3, we did in part 1, we did the value story, which is how to show the value that you add and provide through transformation. In part 3, we did the founder story, which is how to humanize your brand. And then today we did the purpose story, which is the why and the deep meaning and the movement behind what you do. And in next week's or in the next episode, we're going to talk about the customer story and all those different pieces. And so I just want to give massive kudos to the author again for Stories That Stick, Kindra Hall. It's an incredible read. I think everybody should grab it. And I invite you to take some time to write these stories. And so that's where I'm going to wrap today. Put a pretty little bow on it with my Montana vest on because, changing my outfit, but I fell in love with the vest and now I won't take it off because I feel like I'm just getting a warm hug all day. And so I love you to pieces. I appreciate you. If I can help you with any of this, you know how to get a hold of me. DM me on Instagram. It's George Bryant. Remember that relationships will always beat algorithms, with the most important one being yourself. So I will either see you in the next episode or you will hear me in your earballs, but either way, we're out.